72 months. Okay. So when you're going and you're talking about to the bank or you're talking to the dealer and they're going to finance you through their credit option, or if you're talking to mom's credit union or whatever, they're usually going to be saying a 36-month, a 48-month, a 60-month, or a 72-month loan. Because remember, they work in months because months are how they get paid. Similar to with the home loan, that they work in months. Okay. Longer loans have lower payments, but pay more in interest over the life of the loan. Okay. If your loan is 60 months or 72 months, which is 5 or 6 years, right? You risk paying more than your car is worth. Okay, and I'll get to an example of that. What I mean by that is we all understand that cars are not one of those things that go up in value as you use them. Not like a house, right? Cars over time come down in value. All right. So say you had at the end of year 5 or 4, your loan is $5,000 left, but the car is only worth $4,000. That's what I mean by you risk paying more than the car is worth. That you might still have more loan left to pay than your car is worth. So you do not want a long loan if you can help it. Okay. Because A, you pay more in interest, and B, you could end up still owing more than the car is worth if you sold it. Okay. And that's not a good situation. All right, so that's the glimpse of new cars. That's the glimpse of the new cars. Now we're going to talk about used cars. Now we're going to talk about used cars. All right. So used cars, a lot of people buy used cars nowadays. Used cars are a good option because they are cheaper. Okay, that first person took the big hit because this is the standard rule of thumb for cars. As soon as you buy the car, brand new, as soon as you buy it, you drive it off the dealer's lot. Okay. So you drive it off the dealer's lot, and as soon as it gets off the lot, all 4 wheels are off the dealer's lot. It now fully belongs to you. If you get hit right there outside the dealer, you're stuck with the car. It's your deal. You've driven it out of their lot. it drops at least 1/4 of its value as soon as it hits public streets for public use. Okay. So let's think about this in terms of money. Okay, let's think about this in terms of money. Say we have a $16,000 car, brand new, $16,000. If I drop 1/4 of my value as soon as I leave the lot, if I drop 1/4 of its value as soon as I leave the lot, how much is my car worth once it gets out on the street? We'll talk about your question in a minute, Glenn. Not talking about that either, just wait. We're talking about you have purchased the car, you have signed the papers, you own this car. Well, the bank owns the car, but you're driving. You drive off the lot. The car immediately loses 1/4 of its value because it's now for public use. How much is 1/4 of $16,000? How much is 1/4 of $16,000? $4,000. So your car is now worth how much since you've driven it off the lot? No longer is it worth 16,000, right? Worth 12. Okay. That happens with every single brand new car. Not with a used car though. That already happened with the first owner. That's why it's cheaper, okay? There's a catch though. Loans for used cars will never be longer than 5 years, 60 months. Oftentimes they're only 4 years, 48 months. Okay, but they're never going to be longer than 60 months. Okay. Another thing is the loan might be restricted to only market value. So you have to have a bigger down payment. Okay, we all understand that car dealers are trying to make money, just like anybody else selling a product, they're trying to make money. So someone came into their dealership with their car that's in decent shape, and they bought a new car and traded in their old one. That's the biggest way that dealers get these used cars, is they are trade-ins. All right. They gave that person maybe a $5,000 trade-in value, but then they turn around, make sure it's all okay, and put it back out on the lot for $7,000 so they can make a profit. Makes sense, right? But the bank notes it's really only worth $5,000. So the bank will only loan you up to $5,000. And you would have to come with the difference. Do you get it? Now, back to Glenn's question. If you buy a car, can you back out as long as you're on the lot? No. As soon as you sign the paperwork, it's a done deal. There's no back out options on cars. So do not sign unless you're 100% sure. Okay. Test driving doesn't have anything to do with devaluing the car, except if there are too many test drive miles on a particular car, they're going to have to market price down because they used part of the life of the car. But dealers are really good at turning around their merchandise quickly enough that it's not going to sit there long enough that it's going to get 1,000 or more miles on it. Okay. The test drive cars might have up to 100 miles on it. It doesn't really impact until on a new car. Okay. But as soon as you sign that paperwork, it's your car. You can't back out. There is no back out law in California for cars. There is a clause for houses because, I mean, those are huge amounts of money too. So I think that's why. But the car, you have to be careful. You have to be sure because you can't back out once you sign the papers. Okay. Last thing, always, well, let's put this in capital letters because it's an important one. Always check car history using Carfax. So most dealers who sell used cars will have printed out the Carfax for you. Okay. And this is to make sure that the car hasn't been in a major accident or flood, because both do significant damage to the car. So their title is called salvage because lenders will not finance that. Okay. So in California, we generally do not have floods. However, there are other parts of our country that do flood like every year just because it's how their weather works, right? Anybody know a state that floods a lot? Anybody know a state that every year you hear there's flooding? Yeah, a lot of the middle of the country states have flooding that happens every year. Mississippi, Alabama, all those, because the majority of them are below sea level. So when they get a big rain, flood. Now, are there places in California that do the same thing? Yes. But in general, California is not considered a flooding state. But what they do is, okay, when there's a flood, if a car gets stuck in the flood, you know, the water comes up high enough, the person can't get their car out of there. Oh crap, my car is now underwater. Okay. The internal parts of the car sit soaking in the water, which end up causing damage. Okay. The internal parts of the car, even with the best seals, water will leak in and get on the carpet, and get on the upholstery, get onto the. So people that live in that area have flood insurance for their car as well, so that if it's caught in a flood, they can get reimbursed and get a different car. However, you know, they've got this car. So there are companies that go through these states that will buy these cars from the people for really cheap because the people already got a different car from their insurance company. So if I only get $1,000 for it, I don't care. It's $1,000. It's extra, right? So they go through and they pick up these salvaged cars. Okay, salvaged cars. And they then transport them to states that don't have floods. In the meantime, they take them to their site, they have someone go through them, clean the inside really well, put new oil in, put new fluids in and stuff. But does that change that engine's soaked in water? No. Then they go sell them to these other states. And you really have to watch out for this kind of car at the little mom and pop used car dealership that when you talk to the people, you wonder if they're really honest people. Some of you have run into people like this, that you're like, I think you're full out lying to me. Okay. So you always, whenever you go anywhere, you make sure you ask for the Carfax, because the guys that purchased the car from the people, right? The insurance company for that car originally had to report to the state that they have salvaged, they have counted the car as a total and paid the people money to replace it. It's a federal law. That's what the Carfax is finding. That's what the Carfax is finding. So even if my little mom and pop, I wonder how honest that car dealer seller is, even if they bought the car from the company not knowing it was salvage, they're not trying to be dishonest, they didn't know it was a salvage car, you require to see the Carfax because the insurance company had to notify the state. The state DMV knows. All of the DMVs from all the states, federally, they talk to each other. So even if it was salvaged in, say, Texas because of a flood and brought to California to be sold, the Carfax would still find it, okay? And it's to protect you. Another example of a salvage situation. Okay. If the airbags on your car get deployed, the car is now considered totaled. The car is considered totaled. It is considered salvage, even if it's drivable, even if there's no body damage. As soon as the airbags deploy, it's considered totaled. The insurance company would then notify the DMV that this car is considered totaled. And that would also be found on the Carfax. Okay. So it's super important, especially on used cars. New cars will not have that issue. They haven't gone anywhere yet. Used cars, they've had at least one other owner. So you have to check. Okay. And there are banks that won't finance a car if the Carfax comes up with a salvage on it, because basically they're worth nothing. I have one sitting in my driveway. My younger son driving down the street, 10 miles an hour, because he saw a car in front of him that was turning, so he slowed down, glanced away for a second. The car didn't turn as quickly as he thought they would. He swerved, nicked him with the front left bumper. No damage on our car. The airbags went off, because that was the exact spot behind the bumper where the trigger was to alert the car for the airbags. So the car that was worth, it wasn't worth a lot, it was a used car, $3,000, became worth $0. I am having to pay to have someone get it. And the body of the car is perfectly fine. And the engine is perfectly fine. And there is not even a dent, very big dent on the little bumper where he hit. But the airbags deployed, destroyed the dash, broke the windshield. But the car's drivable. So any little thing could trigger those airbags. They're horrible. Salvage cars can appear with any dealership, yes, because it is possible for a person to have a car that they purchased from a private owner that was salvaged. They then they drove it a little while, then they went and got a new car and they traded it in. So yeah, you should always, no matter what, used car, no matter where you're getting it from. It doesn't matter who you're getting it from. If you're getting it from a private party, if you're getting it from a big dealer, if you're getting it from a little dealer, always required to see the Carfax. so you can see if it's a salvage title. Okay. All right. That's it for used cars. We're talk about a new channel. All right. So doesn't matter who. If it's used, ask for the Carfax. And I know it's funny. It's like, oh, ask for the Carfax. It's the little fox. Yeah, but it's important. Okay. So the next thing we're going to be talking about is leasing versus buying a car. Leasing is also a financing option. Okay, leasing is also a financial option. Okay, leasing is basically a long-term rental agreement with the dealership. Okay, so it's got the beauty of having a nicer car if you want, but you don't own it. The dealer still owns it. Okay, you make payments and have a down payment, usually. Sometimes you can get around the down payment, just like buying. Okay. Just like buying. But we're going to talk about some advantages and disadvantages of how leases work. Okay. First, advantage. Advantages. First advantage, it's usually a smaller down payment. Okay. Or in some cases, none at all. Okay. It's usually a lower payment because you are only paying for the time you use it of the total value. So, example, it's a $35,000 car, but I'm only going to be using it 2 years. So making you pay for 2 years worth of the 35,000. Okay, not the whole 35,000. That's what I mean by that. Not like I only pay for 4 days a week. Not that. Okay. At the end, you return it instead of having to sell it. And for some people, that having to sell it thing is just, oh, I don't like that, so I'm not going to deal with that. So that's one of the advantages. Okay. Questions about those? Okay, so they're only making you pay for the portion of the entire value. So they take the entire value and say, they usually do a 10-year plan where they say, okay, the value of the car is going to depreciate over a 10-year span. So if it was a $35,000 car and they divided it by 10 years, how much is that per year? If they take a $35,000 car and they divide that number by 10 years, how much is that per year? 35,000 divided by 10, how much? 3,500. So if your lease is for 2 years, they're just going to expect you to pay them about $7,000 worth of the car, not the whole $35,000. That's what that lower payment because only paying for part means. Do we understand? Okay. However, with advantages, there's always disadvantages, right? First disadvantage, you don't own it. So you can't count it as an asset toward your net worth. It's not yours, it's the dealership's. You're just doing a long-term rental. Okay. Second disadvantage, you can't sell it. Because you don't own it. So if you don't like it, you have to take it back to the dealership. You know, some people, they like a car for about 4 or 5 years and then they sell it and get a new car, right? Craziness. But there are people like that. At the end of the 4 or 5 years, you can't sell it. You return it to the dealer. It's not yours. Okay. Next one, when you return it, you have nothing. Okay. You have nothing. You paid it. It's done. But while you have it, you must pay for the maintenance and the car must be returned in perfect condition, no dents, no tears in the upholstery, none of that, or they will charge you for the repairs. Okay, so you have to be doing the maintenance. You have to be making sure that it stays pretty and nice, because when you return it to them, it has to be in awesome condition or they're going to charge you to fix it. Okay, because it was their car. You were just borrowing it. Rentals are basically a long-term borrow. Okay. Another disadvantage. Move this up. Leases usually have an annual maximum miles you can drive, or you get charged extra. Because there's an average number of miles that the person's supposed to drive in a year if you're just doing normal everyday stuff. And if they drive more than that, then they reduce the value of their car faster because it's more wear and tear on the car. Okay. So they have an annual mileage that you have to stay in, which is the average person, or they're going to charge you extra. This is usually between 12,000 and 15,000 miles per year. Now, right now, that sounds like a lot, but if you're a commuter, which my husband commutes, okay? He works in Livermore. So Stockton to Livermore, 120 miles each way, 240 miles a day, 5 days a week for work. That's going to go over the 12,000 to 15,000 cap this year, easily. Luckily, we don't lease a car, we own it. Okay, but that's, so you got to keep in mind, a lease is not for somebody who's going to have to do long distance commute for work. Not a good plan. Okay, if you work like in Lodi and you live in Stockton, you'll still stay under the cap. If you work in Stockton, work in Manteca and live in Stockton, you'll stay under the cap. But once you start going Sacramento, which is a big job market, or the San Francisco Bay Area, which is our big job market for Stockton area, right? It's not a good plan to be a lease because you will go over. And it's not cheap. They charge you quite a bit for going over their miles. Okay, last disadvantage, which doesn't seem right, but it is. You get charged a penalty if you stop the lease early. If you decide early, like, so you signed for a 3-year lease and after 2 years you decided you're done, they charge you to bring the car back early because they planned, I know, they planned on that income from the car and you're now stopping that income. Now, like I said, people that do this leasing thing they don't do a lot of driving around. You know, they stay close to home. They don't want to get stuck trying to sell a car later. They don't want to, they like to go ahead and switch up their cars every couple years. They're fickle. They don't, you know. Some people, they buy a car and they use a car until the car finally is dead. And then they donate that one away and buy another used car because they're not crazy. But some people, they, oh, but I would like a new car smell again. I don't even know what the new car smell is. I don't think it's that great, but whatever. There are people that are like that. They don't want the responsibility of reselling. They'd like to have a new car every couple years. They're not going to be going any really long distances frequently. It's not like you couldn't take a trip to LA once in the year, but you can't be going ahead and driving to LA every other weekend because you use up your miles too quick. Okay, so there are advantages to them. I'll personally like them, but you know, I do know people that do. They like them because then the big thing is the selling again. They can get a different car and not have to worry about selling this one. That's what I hear from them mostly, is that resale thing. Okay, those are our financing options. All of those involve signing paperwork and making payments. It's financing. Okay, last piece about the car. We're going to talk about the importance of car insurance. Okay, the importance of car insurance. First thing, auto insurance is state required in most states. To even be able to register a car in your name, you have to prove you have auto insurance for it in California. And the insurance companies notify the DMV if someone stops making the loan payment, the insurance payments. So the DMV finds out if there's not insurance on the car. And they will send you hate mail that says, you don't have insurance on this car, you cannot register this car. If you drive this car on the property, on public streets, you can be pulled over and the car seized. Okay, so you have to have insurance. Okay. Now, what does the insurance do? The insurance protects you from losses associated with an unexpected event. What in a car is an unexpected event? What's another name for that? Car accidents, yes. So even if you are not at fault, okay? So it protects you in the event that there's an unexpected event in your car, even if it's not your fault. So it protects you if someone hits you, it protects you if you hit someone. It works both directions. Okay. Lenders require insurance large enough to pay off the, oops, I don't need two pays, pay off the loan if the car is counted as totaled. So you have to make sure the insurance coverage you get is enough to pay off the loan if the accident totals your car. Now, remember what I said. As soon as airbags deploy, your car is considered total, even if it's drivable. So nowadays, it's easier than ever for cars to be counted as totaled. Okay, it's crazy, crazy. Even if the car is totaled, to protect their investment, which makes sense. You know, they lent you the $16,000 to buy the car. They want you to make sure that the coverage is going to pay them back if the car is now not drivable. Okay. Okay. Purpose is to protect loss of property, car, and damage your car does to others. I think it's like this. No, not others' property. Okay. Oh, it's actually others or their property. So if you're in a car accident, say you hit somebody, your insurance will pay for your vehicle, your insurance will pay for their vehicle, and your insurance will pay for medical costs because of something, injuries that might have in the accident. Okay. The coverage that protects I think this should have for purpose is to protect. Oh, sorry. For loss of property, blah, 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 blah. Got it. It was yelling at me. It was bugging me. Coverage that protects when damage is because you did it is called liability. Okay? Liability coverage. With that liability coverage, there is property damage liability, which covers damage to other people's things in an accident. So, driving, slick road, hit a slick spot, lost control, through guy's fence. Liability would pay for the fence to be repaired. Okay. It's not only about vehicles. Okay, it's not only about vehicles, it's about people's things. Okay, other people's things. Okay. So that could be fences, that could be front wall of their house because the car lost control and went through the front of the house. Could be the tree outside their house, could be, okay. Anything that gets damaged in the property, okay. And then the other piece is called bodily image liability, bodily injury liability. Okay, bodily injury. I don't know how to say the other word. Bodily injury liability. And that's exactly what it sounds like. It pays for medical bills, for injuries in an accident, actually injuries or death. In an accident that is your fault. So there is a clause in the insurance that if you're in an accident and it's your fault and a person dies, there's a dollar value that they would pay their family. Or if they're hurt, they would submit their medical bills. Okay. Car insurance is most expensive when you are young. Shock of shocks, right? Okay. And / or an inexperienced driver. Okay. So most of the time, car insurance companies will ask to see your DMV record. Kind of like a lender asking you to see your credit report. The insurance companies want to see your DMV record. Do you have a lot of tickets on your record? Not a good thing. Do you have accidents on your record? Because when there's a car accident, the insurance company has to report it to the DMV. It goes on your driving record. So there's a driving record like there's a credit record. Okay. So if you have too many accidents or traffic violations, tickets for speeding and stuff like that, you could be denied insurance or be required to pay a large premium. There are some insurance companies that specialize in these kind of drivers, that even if you've had an accident, you've had all this stuff, they'll lend it to you. They'll go ahead and give you insurance, but they do charge a lot. Next thing, that the cost of insurance can be affected with an A. I hate that word. By poor credit. Because if you have poor credit, then there's a chance you're not going to pay your premiums, and we don't trust you. You haven't shown worthy with your finances. It's crazy. The plus, there are some positives out there. You can get a discount as a good driver, and there are criterion for that, or good student. There's criterion out there for that. They give those kind of people discounts because you've shown to be a trustworthy person. Okay, so you want to go ahead and make sure that you're keeping your grades at B's or above, because they give you a discount on your car insurance or your parents' premium that they pay for you on their car insurance. Okay. Last little things. Other things that impact the cost of car insurance. Okay. First one, value of the car. Obviously, if it's a $50,000 car, it's going to be having a higher premium than a $10,000 car because it's going to cost more to cover the loan. Okay. Type of car will affect the premium for your car insurance. Guess what kind of cars cost the most money to insure? What type of car would they be? Give me a type of car. Sedan, minivan, SUV, sports car, what kind of car do you think that they're going to charge the most for? Yes, sports cars. Exactly. Okay. Sports cars cost the most. Why? Why would a sports car cost so much? Why do you think? Why do you think they're going to charge you extra for a sports car? What kind of behavior do people with sports cars usually have? Slightly on the reckless side, darting in and out of traffic, driving faster than they should. Obnoxious behavior. People in sports cars tend to think and drive recklessly. So the insurance company will charge them more because they are knowing and planning that there will be more tickets and potentially more accidents in this type of car. They don't make responsible decisions all the time when they're in a sports car, okay? Especially those little two-seater convertible, just too easy to like floor it and be like zooming down the road, right? And two more things on where you live makes a difference on how much you pay for car insurance. Venture why? Why do you think maybe? Why would somebody in San Francisco have to pay more for their car insurance than say Stockton or Lodi? What do you think? No. Yes, because there's more cars. So big cities pay more because more cars for potential accidents. Okay. Little cities, little towns, there's not as many cars, so there's not as big a chance. Last one, and we talked about this a little bit already. Miles you drive per year. Same kind of reason as with the living in the big cities, okay? Driving more costs more because there's more chance for potential accident. For potential accident. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, that's it for the notes. I want to talk about the project. So click turn in on those.